Last episode, we looked at Vybz Kartel, how violence in his music manifested IRL. Now let's take a closer look at the society that made him and build an idea of what it's like to be Jamaican.
My mom is a product of the 70s, my born 1976. Product of the Cold War. If you're a PNP vote, what we there. If you're a Labour right, you go over there. So. Yeah. So we are product of the 70s, Cold War, baby.
Vybz was born in an election year, 1976, when insurrection fears led the government to declare a state of emergency because of all the hatred and murder scenes. See, the 70s was a crazy time. Jamaica had a government that started off popular, but by 1980s they got kicked out of power and didn't return until 1989. Independence came in 1962, a victory coupled with a threat. See, the problem is, despite politicians' promises, Jamaica wasn't strong enough to split with Britain yet. Tourism and bauxite became core earners, but this weren't enough to elevate poor workers. By the 70s, a leader emerged, and he made people believe in his words because he spoke like a preacher in church.
You must inspire by example.
He was energized and angry. He didn't pretend inequality was ever fine and dandy. He pushed for leaders of the third world to work together like a family. His name was Michael Manley.
Michael Manley has a strong favor with the working class through his history with the trade union movement.
Manley was a white-passing politician, which wasn't new to Jamaicans, but he had a swagger that was smooth and engaging. He appealed to a new generation of youth that were still living through segregation. Manley became Prime Minister in 1972. People loved him, and his wife, Beverly, too. She was black and outspoken. She broke all the norms. Together, they put in place major social reforms like free education and minimum wage, workers' rights, women's rights, delivering change on the international stage where many didn't engage.
We decided that we're no longer going to be walking around on our knees.
Manley saw the world economy like a prisoner's cage for poor countries. He pushed for a different arrangement. After Kwame Nkrumah a decade before, along with Julius Nyerere of Tanzania, Michael Manley became a major voice defending the right of poor countries to make a choice, to choose how to govern themselves, take care of their people, and recover their wealth. These leaders reasoned that poor countries outnumbered rich ones in the United Nations. And if they didn't use this to their advantage, their people would continue to face violations. They noticed the West developing welfareism, investing in social housing and healthcare systems, and they wanted this change to extend across the water, a new international economic order.
Michael Manley and Julius Nyerere are key figures in thinking around these economic questions. How we can rearrange the system so that we can, as third world countries, not just be at the bottom of the barrel.
All America heard was communism, even though a communist plot was non-existent. Communism is a step after socialism, where a population owns most of its industries. It's not what Manley was going for, but it's what the US projected because of his socialist sympathies.
Are you saying the CIA was operating?
Our impression is that the CIA had a hand in what happened in 1976.
In other words,
our information. Well, in the way, for instance, that they would have done in Chile. Nobody denies it in Chile, it's always denied in Jamaica.
Every time a non-Western government tried to liberate its people from conquest and suffering, the CIA would come and stage a coup and replace the government with dictators who, surprise, surprise, had a pro-Western change of view. The same fate awaited Jamaica too. You could call it the Guyana or Grenada route. Guns and drugs flooded into the country, and the people were so poor, what were they to do? The global economy was under total monopoly. Rich countries offered their people social democracy, welfare to support those closer to poverty, with elections not limited to owners of property. So why were they blocking others' road to democracy? Why the hypocrisy? Because the role of the Third World as far as the West was concerned was strictly providing commodities. Now the UK Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher came to power in 1979. 2 years later came Ronald Reagan in the US. The two of them were very aligned. Together they oversaw the steady decline of politics for poor people. They weren't trying to hear about a world that was more equal. As far as they were concerned, the Third World's problem wasn't capitalism, it was backwards tradition and lack of ambition.
Countries are not rich in proportion to their natural resources. They have not had an enterprise economy to develop those resources. So it is not the free enterprise countries that are responsible. They have created the wealth. It is the political system which enhances the enterprise of the people which will deal with this poverty.
Creativity, workmanship, made America the leader. The leader. The leader. We've opened up the economy, lowered tax rates, and restored the ideal of limited government and free enterprise. For all these reasons, America today stands poised for even greater economic growth in the year ahead.
Thatcher and Reagan had an elaborate vision of a world where there was no welfare, just wealth, caring for itself, not obliged to help, and never having to listen to democratic decisions. You see, rich countries themselves had an undemocratic influence on global institutions, and they used that role to control the distribution of loans, especially to third world countries experimenting with socialist solutions. In the case of Jamaica, the US punished Michael Manley for embracing a neighbor, the island of Cuba, under Fidel Castro. America saw this as brazen behavior.
Manley has been accused of taking his socialism over the brink into communism. The claim is based largely on the personal bond which certainly seems to have grown between Castro and Manley.
First, America tried to blackmail Jamaica by withholding aid. Perfect example of the oppressive tactics the West would practice in diplomacy and global trade. This is exactly what Manley was against. In fact, he got angry and defensive.
They are not going to tell me what relationship I have with Fidel Castro. We have that friendship with Cuba as part of a world alliance of third world nations that are fighting for justice for poor people in the world. We are not angering the United States of America. They are angering themselves.
Manley was getting on America's nerves, and it affected Jamaicans in ways they never deserved. The CIA put guns in the hands and funds in the banks of hundreds of gangsters, paid them to cause mayhem. They told the people the aim was to liberate them, but really they were helping Manley's opposition, take him out of the top position. This was the Jamaican Labour Party. With the alleged backing of the CIA, the JLP was able to raise an army.
All of this happened not because the PNP just loved to fight. We had a purpose, and the purpose got us into a war. The main source of violent destabilization in Jamaica came from the United States of America through the CIA.
So by the late 70s, the state of Jamaican democracy was not pretty. Things got gritty. Kingston became Gunshot City. It's like the country had gone crazy. Manley was being pressured to do a 180 and abandon his policy of help for the poor. Meanwhile, the working class dealt with the war. But after angering America and doubling down on his socialist governing style, Manley should have known there was gonna be a spanking. And it was no surprise the economy was tanking. As public services went underserviced, the next election came around and stunned observers. The JLP won, but Jamaica lost, something in the region of 800 murders. The new Prime Minister, Edward Seaga, had the support of Thatcher and Reagan. He reversed the policies of Manley's government, and state support was snatched from Jamaicans. That's the world Vibes Cartel was born into. This is the reality he's been talking to. Now, if we love the music, educating ourselves on the context is something we all can do.
See, Bob Marley sing whole heap of culture song, and them shot him. Them try kill him. Because him sang them never balance with what the status quo did I deal with at the time. The status quo did I deal with division. Because when I say Cold War, proxy war a fight, GOP, PNT, tank it, communism against capitalism. So it was never about the lyrics. It was always about the influence.
I hope you've had as much fun watching this video as I've had making this. So feel free to like and subscribe, comment your favorite bits, and sign up to the mailing list.